I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about the UFC heavyweight division. Former UFC undisputed heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou has been cut and released by the UFC. Jon Jones will fight Ciryl Gane for the newly vacated is it vacated heavyweight title at UFC 285 in Las Vegas. Jon Jones will make his return to the octagon in March after more than 3 years away when he meets Ciryl Gane for the now vacant heavyweight title at UFC 285 in Las Vegas. Jones, a former longtime light heavyweight champion, will be making his heavyweight debut versus Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane, 11-1 in MMA, 8-1 in the UFC. His one loss came to Francis Ngannou, but now Francis Ngannou, after a contract dispute with the promotion, has been cut and released by the UFC. Wow. UFC President Dana White confirmed the matchup Saturday following UFC Fight Night 217 after photos of a digital billboard attached to the hold on, was it a digital billboard? I don't even know. I thought it was hung up by the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas surfaced on social media. The same venue is set to host the UFC 285 pay-per-view on March 4th. Okay, let me see. We've been, this is Dana White talking about the negotiations with Ngannou. We've been negotiating with Francis Ngannou for more than 2 years, Dana White said, and added that Ngannou's knee, which was surgically repaired, could be an issue for him. UFC offered Francis a deal that would have made him the highest paid heavyweight in the history of the company. Quote, more than Brock Lesnar, more than anybody, and he turned the deal down. Wow. Jon Jones, who many consider to be the greatest MMA fighter in MMA history, obviously, hasn't competed since UFC 246 in February 2020. Can you imagine how much the world has changed since February 2020? He edged out a decision over Dominic Reyes. Okay, is there anything else going on here that we really want to get into? Ngannou and Stipe Miocic were the first two named most frequently connected to Jon Jones' heavyweight debut. Instead, he'll meet former interim champion Ciryl Gane, coming off of a third-round knockout over Tai Tuivasa at UFC Fight Night 209 in September. That was September of last year? Wow. Okay, and the current, let me see if there's anything happening here with, this is a good lineup. Brunson, Duplessis, Shavkat versus Jeff Neal. The one thing I would notice about this, there's no other heavyweight fights on this card, right? The UFC likes to have, either a backup fighter for the championship fight or at least two other fighters in the same division for the championship fight. I don't know if this card is complete. Obviously, they just named Jones versus Gane. So the question is, will they add Blades versus Pavlovich? Right, Sergey Pavlovich. His name has been finally starting to pop up in this UFC heavyweight division. So someone you definitely need to keep an eye on. To me, it makes the most sense that Blades versus Curtis Blades versus Sergey Pavlovich would make the most sense for either a fight night or a co-main event on this card. Like I said, there's no heavyweight fights on this card. So I would not be surprised if they do add one of those two names, or if one of those two fighters, Blades or Sergey Pavlovich, will be a backup fighter for this vacant heavyweight title. Jon Jones in Las Vegas, we already know what's going on there, right? But we'll see. This is a very good fight. As a Jon Jones fan, I remember a few years ago when he first made the decision to go to heavyweight, and then seeing Ngannou knock out Miocic for the title. I definitely was not wanting to see Jon Jones fight Ngannou. Right, it was not my first choice for him versus, to make it to the heavyweight division. Obviously there's names like Stipe Miocic. I believe Stipe Miocic tweeted something out saying that he likes the fight of Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane, and that he will ask for the winner in July of this year. It's a little bit surprising because Stipe and Jon Jones, neither have fought in 2-3 years. So it's definitely surprising, and definitely a good sign that both of them are back and looking to fight this year. I don't know if Stipe is, maybe he wants to fight someone like Sergey Pavlovich. Maybe something like that happens with the UFC, or will Stipe Miocic literally sit out and still demand that he gets the winner of Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane? We'll see. Let me know your opinion on this story. Who do you have? I believe I saw a story that said, at least at the opening, that Jon Jones was an underdog versus Ciryl Gane. Obviously I'm a big fan of Jon Jones. So I would take Jon Jones to win this fight over Ciryl Gane. I would take it easily over, with the wrestling, the submissions. I don't think Jon Jones striking is that bad. Heavyweight striking is definitely different than light heavyweight striking. But I think, if Jon Jones gets this a little bit into the later rounds, a few takedowns, a few trips of Ciryl Gane, that could be a huge problem for Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane is a really, really good striker. Long reach. We saw Jon Jones have a little bit of problem with fighters with long reach. I don't know what Ciryl Gane's reach is compared to Dominic Reyes or Alexander Gustafsson, but I'm pretty sure it's probably a little bit longer reach for Ciryl Gane. So it should be it's going to be a great fight. Obviously, I'm going to root for Jon Jones over Ciryl Gane. But let me know your opinion of this story. Is this the fight to make? This story almost involved 0% Francis Ngannou. I really don't have much to say about the Francis Ngannou thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I can't say I agree with the UFC for offering him the biggest heavyweight contract of all time, or I disagree with Francis Ngannou for turning it down. I don't know, maybe Ngannou thought it wasn't enough. Maybe it wasn't the most of all time. Maybe it was. Francis Ngannou is the current former UFC undisputed champion. UFC was pushing him heavy, but his relationship with the UFC kind of soured when he fought Stipe Miocic for the first time. A lot of people said he was kind of feeling himself. He wasn't really training. He was here, there. He was traveling everywhere. He was just super, super feeling himself. And then he lost that fight versus Stipe Miocic. Kind of got humbled a little bit in that fight. But then he came back to knock out Stipe Miocic, Francis Ngannou. And we'll see what happens for his career. Obviously, he could be going to boxing. He could be going to another organization, Bellator. I believe Francis Ngannou is now official a free agent. So he can, there's a lot of options for him. Good luck to him and his future. But the UFC is going to move on, and there's a lot of heavyweights, right? There's a lot of heavyweights out there for the UFC to move on to. Jones, Miocic, Gane, Sergey, Blades. So the heavyweight division is definitely going to get a lot more interesting, a lot more competitive in 2023. I'm Jason, UFC. Today we had a story about former UFC undisputed heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou has been cut and released, and stripped of the heavyweight championship. Now UFC will have a fight for the vacant heavyweight champion. It will be Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane at UFC 285 in Las Vegas. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.